Are there any corrections, additions, comments? Nope. Not. Is there a motion to approve those two sets of minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the public hearing for the local planning agency, and also of the regular meeting of the public hearing for Friday, May 14th.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes?
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. We have a change to the agenda, our town manager. Perhaps you could explain.
Yes,
how we should
okay.
adjust the agenda.
Under communication from the public, we do have someone that will be making a presentation, as you see on the agenda, but I'm also going to be making some comments about other employees. Won't take long, so that will be added to communication from the public. Also, I'd like to adjust the agenda to move under the town manager, that would be 9B, the utility undergrounding. Mr. Tim Sheriff is here from Comcast. I'd like to move him up to follow the communication from the public if we can.
Very good. So we'll move item 9B1 to follow section 7, communications.
And I also have two items to add to the town manager's report. So number 5, after Australian pine tree removal, will be writing off bad debt policy.
All right, well, that is item 5.
And then number 6 would be to set the budget hearings for September.
Okay, that'll be item 6, setting budget hearing dates.
Yes, and then under C, Baxter Woodman, this is not really the CIP review. That will be at the July meeting. Rather, today we'll be talking about the core basin drainage evaluation that we had Baxter Woodman perform for us.
So we're going to move the CIP review to July.
Correct.
And instead work on the drainage basin report.
He'll be presenting that today.
Correct. Very good. We also have the application public hearing 8C, which I believe is going to be moved to next month. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we do have the application from the Golf Club under C1 for the zoning text amendment relative to the reverse osmosis water plant. Unfortunately, Mr. Lyons has a conflict, so he has to recuse himself, and that would leave only 2 members able to vote on that, so we would not have a quorum for that. So unfortunately, we have to move that to next month.
Okay, I think that's it for the changes to agenda. Our next meeting is July 9th at 9 a.m., where some of these matters that have been moved will be heard. We will also have an August meeting, August 13th, for anyone who wishes to attend. Okay, let's move to public comment. We have the International Institute of Municipal Clerks.
Good morning. My name is Linnell Gaskins, and I am the town clerk with the town of Highland Beach. I'm currently serving as the Southeast District Director for the Florida Association of City Clerks. And I want to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to be here this morning to recognize Renee Basil for earning her CMC designation. Just a little bit about Renee. Renee has been with the town of Gulfstream since May of 2016. She started as a temp and was later hired as the executive assistant to the town manager and town clerk. Recently, she was promoted to the assistant town clerk. She joined the Florida Association of City Clerks and began the certification process in October of 2016 and has been an active member of the association since. She has served on several committees. In 2018 through 2019, she served on the Florida Association of City Clerks Auction and 50/50 Committee. In 2020 through 2021, she served on the Resolution Committee. Renee has been very active in the educational component for the association. In November of 2017, she participated in her first webinar titled 10 Things Every Clerk Should Know. April 2018, she participated in a webinar titled Florida's Government and Sunshine Laws. She also participated in several summer conference and academies starting in 2018. And she's currently registered for the 2021 summer conference and academy, which will be in a few weeks. Currently, the Florida Association of City Clerks has 629 members. Of our 629 members, there are 422 members who have reached their Certified Municipal Clerk designation. The Certified Municipal Clerk program is designated to enhance the job performance and recognizes the professionalism of city clerks, of the city clerk's office in small and large municipalities. To earn the, I'm going to call it CMC. To earn the CMC designation, a municipal clerk must attend extensive education programs and requires pertinent experience in a municipality. The CMC program prepares the clerks to meet the challenges of the complex role of the municipal clerk by providing them with quality education in partnership with institutions of higher learning. Before I present Renee Basil with her CMC pen and plaque, I would like to share a few comments that I received during the planning process of this presentation. Comment from Town Clerk Rita Taylor. Renee is dedicated, very proficient in everything that she does, and is always willing to help others. Rita is very blessed to have you. Comments from the Chief Finance Officer, Rebecca. Renee is delightful, personable, and very easy to get along with. She is a team player. She's dependable, reliable, and welcoming. And I love this one. She has infectious energy and is a sweet person. Comments from Town Manager Durham. Renee is committed to her work and the town. She is incredibly patient. She's a very calming person and is able to calm people down. She manages the public information requests and assists the assistant town manager with the same. She also manages payroll and utility billing. Renee has a great reputation with the community and staff. On behalf of the Florida Association of City Clerks and the Southeast District, please join me in congratulating Ms. Renee Basil on her efforts as one of our newest certified municipal clerks. We are all proud, so proud of you, Renee.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah. Can I get just a picture?
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Gaskins, and thank you for your kind words. It really was touching to hear everything you had to say about Renee. And we are very pleased and proud of her. It's really been difficult, I know, because there's an awful lot of work that goes into the certification. I would come to town hall, Renee'd be gone. Renee's, she's working over here, she's studying there, she's at a meeting here. And it's been going on for a while, so congratulations in finally accomplishing that certification.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
And so, Mr. Mayor, I thought it would be appropriate, and congratulations to Renee. I know it's really been kind of a 4-year journey, right? To get your points and the education required to do this. So, it is a really, arduous task to do this and still work 40 hours a week, because you had to do a lot of that at home on our own. So we truly appreciate that.
Thank you.
But I thought it was appropriate. I'd like to recognize some other employees. I mean, they reach milestones also and get certifications, and I just thought I'd like to bring you up to date on some of those. Rebecca too, she has been voted, or will be voted, to be the new Vice President of the Palm Beach County chapter of the Florida Government Finance Officers Association. And once she serves the time as the Vice President, she will then ascend to be the President of that organization.
Yeah.
And of course, that's 39 cities, that are in Palm Beach County. Anthony Beltran, I think Anthony's back here. He just successfully met all the requirements to be fully qualified through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Stormwater Erosion and Sedimentation Control Inspector Training Program. So he's a qualified stormwater management inspector. I think this would, if you remember, we put in a new outfall pipe over there on Polo, and we had to hire someone from Baxter and Woodland to inspect that as the construction was going on. If we had Anthony with this new certification, he could have done that for us. So, and if we have to put in any more catch basins, as you know, we're doing the studies on drainage, then Anthony would be available to do that. Mr. Beltran also recently completed training from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to be a stormwater erosion sedimentation control inspector that enforces national pollution discharge elimination system permit requirements. And so that's related to construction sites and the control of erosion from construction sites that are underway. And unfortunately, those all start out really well with the requirements, but as the construction goes along, it kind of, it kind of, peters out. And so we have somebody here that's on staff that now can make sure that all of our construction sites meet those permit requirements. And then, of course, last but not least, I wanted to once again congratulate Assistant Town Attorney Trey Mazzaro for recently receiving the Florida League of Cities Home Rule Hero Award for his outspoken advocacy for municipal home rule protection during this year's state legislative session. So I always feel like our public needs to know some of the accomplishments that all of our employees have.
Well, thank you for doing that, because it is important that we know how.
I mean, they do this kind of thing and they never know,
Right.
Our public doesn't
No,
know.
congratulations to all of you. It's really a remarkable achievement, and just very grateful to have all of you.
Well, I'm going to pipe in, and I must say that the leadership qualities you bring clearly have something to do with the development of all our town staff, and that's great. I think that's important.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, let's move on, then we're going to talk about the undergrounding.
Yes, sir. So we have,
I apologize for interrupting. Renee told me that these were still public comment period time.
oh, sure,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
And that you would.
You're absolutely right.
Would that be all right?
No, absolutely. It's my fault. We injected so much into
I know.
public comment, I forgot, so please.
Well, thank you so much. My husband and I'm Margot Stahl, and my husband James Gammon. We are residents here at the 3851 North Ocean Boulevard. And we appreciate the opportunity to make a couple of quick comments, because on your agenda, you'll be addressing an issue very close to our hearts. We've been owners since 1974, and we've seen a lot of wonderful improvements to the town of Gulfstream over these many decades. There's just one particular problem that has plagued us now for the past 3 or 4 years. And it's gotten recently much worse, and it's been highlighted. I'm sure some of you have seen it already on the first page of the Coastal Star regarding the mystery of low water pressure. And so we've been at the forefront in our community, and we are here representing the board of directors of our association. We have been trying to work with, unfortunately, Manager Durham and Anthony have been working very closely with us to try to solve this mystery, and we're very grateful to them for that. We would be happy to answer any questions when it does come up on your agenda later, I think today. But if I could submit our comments to the record along with the article that addresses this issue, and then I'll sit down and we'll look forward to hearing more about the subject when it comes up. We do appreciate your support in solving this mystery for us. It has been really intolerable, and I'm sure we will find a solution to the problem with your help, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we will be talking about it.
Thank you.
It's an urgent problem.
Thank you, and I apologize for the mask. We've been vaccinated. We're the only ones in here wearing them. But my daughter made me swear because she's pregnant, she's pregnant, that until she gives birth, if I'm ever indoors, I have to wear it. So thank you for tolerating it.
That's great. That's fine. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? If not, then we'll move on to the undergrounding information. Mr. Dunham.
Yes, Mr. Sheriff, if you could, are you gonna need an easel? I mean.
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay.
Bring out if that's possible.
Yes, can you help me with that?
There's also one over there. Can't put it there.
I think if he. Okay, yeah, if you could kind of get it closer to the dais, so.
This way?
Maybe between Renee and the chief, like where Tim is standing.
Yeah, I'll put that board up on
Probably needs to go the other way. No, I'll be fine.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Sheriff. I'm with Cypress Communications, contractor for Comcast. We've made a lot of progress since the last meeting. Here's a blueprint of the whole place. The green down here, we wrecked out. We were off the poles down in the southwest corner. This is Golfview right here. So all this green, we have wrecked out off the poles in this pocket right here. The blue, we have not wrecked out yet because we still have to keep the MDUs up here going.
What is that?
The blue, we have not wrecked out yet.
No, I mean, what is it that's preventing us from removing it?
The MDUs, like on C Road right here and up on North County, those are gonna stay on coax.
Thank you.
Multiple dwelling apartment buildings.
Part of that bluey area is keeping these MDUs going. Okay, so we haven't touched the blue area yet. The yellow line you see here running all the way up, we pulled that backbone fiber from the cabinets on Golfview Road all the way up to our new location up on Little Club. That's completed. And then we have all the coax plant from C Road north up to Little Club. We're gonna be wrapping Little Club up today. We've successfully pulled all the coax on the ground so far. So we made quite a bit of progress so far.
That's what I understand, and I appreciate it.
And I think you can see some of the evidence of that.
Yeah, the tails that are sticking up.
Yeah.
And we will be placing pedestals on top of those. Probably next week, you'll see that the crew's out here cutting the cables down, putting pedestals on there. And then I'm gonna start splicing hopefully next week. We're gonna splice the new plant that's in the ground before I can activate it. We call it cold splicing, and keep the old plant running. And then we'll get everything spliced, the new plant that's in the ground, get it spliced and activated. Then we'll start converting the MDUs over to the new plant. And then after that's all done, we can wreck out all the aerial plants.
So what's your time frame as that?
I would My prediction right now is August 15th to be completed, but we're moving at a very good pace. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of extra time. And I'm having meetings with Greg every Friday at 9 a.m. I'm doing a constant update with him to let him know where we're at. So.
All right, good. Well, I appreciate it. Mr. Dunham has indicated that you seem to be working diligently, meeting with him and keeping him abreast of.
Yes, sir.
Of what's
Another thing I like to point out up here on 4010, 4008, 406, and 4004, we're gonna have to drop, there's not enough pipes there. We used up all the pipes already, so I'm gonna have to do some trenching in front of those condos right there, which I'm waiting on a DOT permit, because that's all DOT right away right there. It's already been applied for, so we're looking at 2 to 3 weeks. And that's the only other plant that I'll have to put underground.
But that work's included in your estimate of August 15th,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir. If there's any way that maybe Greg or somebody can contact if there's a HOA in those condo buildings, to let them know we will be trenching up front there, so there's no surprise.
And we can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
And I noticed they just put down the new paver bricks, but we're gonna bore underneath there and we're not gonna damage anything.
So are you gonna be hand digging
Yes.
for the most part, but boring under the?
Right, we'll
the
be
driveway?
trenching. The crew I have out there is really good about cutting the sod and getting it laid back.
They've done a really good job.
So that's my best crew, and that's who I recruited to get in here to get this stuff done and
Okay.
get this moving forward.
Questions? All right, thank you, Ken. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the update. Okay, let's move on then to, the public hearing. We have removed item number 1, but we do have another item. Are there any ex parte communications to be announced? No? Very good. Would you administer oaths for anyone who wishes to speak on the application by Russell Recipients? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. All right, very good. This is an application for 2520 Avenue Au Soleil.
Mind if I pull this USB out?
Mm-hmm.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience in me setting up here.
Good morning.
Good morning, Russell.
I'm Dr. Russell Rosicki, architect, representing the interest of Nicole and Ryan Weeks at 2520 Avenue Au Soleil. They have an expanding family and they're interested in adding another bedroom, as well as rebuilding a portion of their home and adding on to make a larger master suite. They're converting an existing sunroom into habitable space, so it'll be conditioned. And they are also requesting a rear detached pavilion at the rear yard. The existing home habitable space is 3,856 square feet. plus a proposed addition of 435 square feet. Amounts to 4,291 square feet. And adding the garage, we would add another 476.7 square feet. The home that's designed is in compliance with the zoning setbacks as well as the floor area ratio limitations. I have prepared renderings of both the front and the rear of the home. It's a Spanish Mediterranean revival. Essentially, what makes this renovation unique is that at the north side or the north wing of the home, they have an elongated portion, which sort of runs front to back parallel to the lot line, and they're elevating that roof there. Mediterranean architecture is understood by its asymmetry as well as, and the Gulf Stream Mediterranean style is also categorized by its long linear continuity across the facade. So in keeping with that, I prepared a design for an addition that I think complements what they already have there. The roof will match the existing home and the stucco will also match the existing home. I'm happy to open this up for questions so I don't take too much of your time.
Well, if you could just identify, see there's a special exception being requested to increase in eave height. I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
Sure. So we have an existing sunroom at the west side of the home. The existing eave height or fascia height there is meeting with the proposed elevated roof eave. Essentially, the roof that's being lifted is being lifted by 2 feet 9 inches. The ridge meets with the existing ridge, so we're not increasing the building height.
Do you have a picture of that?
I do.
You can use the mouse,
Thank you.
just use the wheel to continuously scroll it.
Sure. I'm sorry if this is too small. If you'd like me to zoom in, I'll do it there. But where the mouse is, you see the new eave touching the existing sunroom eave, right? Because the sunroom sits a little higher. It's a taller ceiling as it is existing today, and it sort of piggybacks onto the rear portion of the main roof running across the home. The new addition gets elevated and the fascia meets.
That's for the conditioned porch area.
That's
Right.
That's correct.
You need to raise that.
The conditioned porch area is essentially remaining the same height, but the new elevated portion across the front of the home, let me just run to the plot plan. So it's what I call the north wing. It's everything that runs from east-west compass direction, starting from the garage at the east side, all the way to the master suite at the west side. That's the elevated portion. It's depicted also in this rendering here. So this is the front portion being elevated. Here's another view of it, viewing northwest. This is viewing almost directly west. And then this is a rendering viewing southeast, northeast.
So you're just tying in the addition to the existing roof?
I
So
am.
it's gonna be same height, same,
It is. At the request of the owner, essentially what it does that makes this unique is that it's lifting in comparison to, if we go back to the front rendering, I'll just. It's lifting the eave and fascia line in comparison to the main stretch of the home. And this is at the request of the owner. Essentially, they have 8-foot ceilings in the built-out areas on the north and south side of the home, which is the bedroom spaces. They figured while they're rebuilding this addition, or I should say the north wing and the addition, they wanted an increased ceiling height. The main home, as you walk into it, it's in character to actually keep an increased ceiling height at both the north and south, because they have this main vaulted ceiling. That's approximately 14 feet from the finished floor to the underside of the gable. So increasing the ceiling height for the proposed addition with a direct request by the owner.
Don, are you familiar with the house?
About a little bit, that was O'Hare's house, I believe.
Mhm.
I have a question on page A4. From reading the center of the roof, which was almost a flat roof or something, that's going to remain?
The center of the main center of the home, that's an existing gable roof. That runs in a north-south direction.
On the top illustration, the cross-section of midpoint home, you have new low slope EPDM roof, and it looks like a 1/4 of an inch slope there. Now, is with a 1/4 of an inch slope on a roof, is that enough for water drainage and problems with water, even with insurance? I have one area of my home that has a flat roof
Great
over
question.
an eye, and insurance just goes through the roof if it's over 10% of, and I know in the code, low slopes are prohibited.
I understand. Yeah, this is an existing low slope roof that's there. It was prior approved. The idea is to convert that space to living space, essentially, is what's happening.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, sure, I've designed 1/4 inch per foot pitched roofs, and what matters most is that they come with an NOA, notice of acceptance. The one we're proposing is Miami-Dade, accepted. And being that it pitches out and away from the home, it's not inward towards a drain. It will pitch towards the gutter, which will then carry that water away. To increase the pitch of this roof would allow it to become larger. My goal as the architect is to minimize the flat roof as much as possible and to maintain the pitch that's currently there.
So you think that with the 1/4 of an inch slope is?
Yeah, again, I would like to bring this to the minimum required, and an EPDM roof is virtually impervious. Essentially, it's a built-up multiple membrane system, and it's not going to fail anytime soon. I've used it on large institutional buildings for NASA, for inward pitching of roofs. And where it really gets questionable is when you have flat roof valleys, where actually they direct to a certain point, whether it be a scupper, an interior drain, or even an exterior point. The valleys become less than a 1/4 of an inch per foot. So a 1/4 of an inch per foot meets the code, but furthermore, the valleys that would pitch that water on a flat roof, that becomes more like 1/16 of an inch per foot, because you can imagine it takes a longer run for the valley of a flat roof, right? So if it's just a straight shed roof in this case, I'm comfortable and confident in it.
And also, I remember reading that you were adding a window over the garage. Do you have an illustration of that?
Yes, the rendering that is on the top there, on the poster board, depicts that window. It's basically, it's equal and opposite with the other side of the home.
Okay, so that's the garage there.
That's more of an architectural feature, I assume, to give it some balance.
It is. That's the only reason it's there.
Do you have any other questions? Paul? No?
Okay, so, I want to propose that we approve. I haven't done this in a while, so always rely on it. I guess we start with the demolition permit. Yeah. I propose that we approve a demolition permit to permit the remodeling on the north side of the building, which includes raising the existing roof to allow higher ceilings and the addition of a master bedroom.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes?
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
I propose approval of a special exception to permit the eave height to be constructed at 10 foot 9 inches, which is 3 inches over the maximum permitted, but which will match the eave height of the existing portion.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes?
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
I propose approval of a level 3 architectural site plan to permit the conversion of the sunroom to added living room space and the additions of a master bedroom and a pavilion, which includes an outdoor kitchen.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time today.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna move now to our auditor, Ron, you had a report to present.
Mr. Mayor, there's a commission.
Once a year, like it or not.
Yeah, I tell you, it's great to be out. I worked from my home for over a year, and it's really nice to go out in public and not have to wear a mask, and I didn't go out much at all for a year. And this is the life of me. One, I want to thank the town for allowing Nolan Homemeyer to serve as your auditors again this year. I realize there was a lot of competitors out there, and we really appreciate your business. We hope we've done a good job. If we have, tell everybody you know, and if we haven't, tell us. We'll try and do better next time. I've prepared a little handout like every year. It's a 5-year trend analysis, and this is the report. If it's not available on your website, it soon will be. Anyone that wants a copy can get it in PDF format. And I know from the looks on people's faces when I present these things every year that I talk about all these reports in here. And so I've concluded it must be terribly boring, I can tell just by the look, because the wording in the report stays the same every year. And the thing that changes are the numbers. So this year I'm going to talk a little more about the numbers and less about the reports. Suffice it to say that there's an independent auditor's report on the financial statements. We gave what we call clean opinion again. The financial statements were fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's another report on internal control and compliance where we don't really give an opinion, but if we find anything that needs reporting, we tell you about it. There's a management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General where we have to comment on various items that they mandate. There's another report on compliance with the statute that governs the investment vehicles that municipalities can use. And essentially got clean opinions in all these. So with that, I want to talk more about the numbers, but I want to make a shameless plug for management this year. And there's a portion of this report called Management's Discussion and Analysis. And it's only a few pages long. It starts on page 4, I think it's from 4 through 13, I believe it. And it's a year-over-year comparison. It's a 2-year comparison. And the difference between that and the rest of the report is the rest of the report gives you numbers. But the management's discussion and analysis tells you why and what happened. It's kind of, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. You know, it's the things that went on that made these numbers. And it's very enlightening. They've done an excellent job. They got some color charts and graphs and like I said, a 2-year comparison. And if you just wanted to read this thing and get a gist of what happened in the town, you could read those few pages and you would have a very good understanding. And they refer you, if you need more details, they refer you to the appropriate pages within the report. And everybody has to do this as part of, financial statements in accordance with GAAP for governmental entities, but different places do a better job. Some people do a really good job, some don't do such a great job. This one's very good. It's pleasing to the eye and it's informative. And so I would highly encourage everybody, if you go to read this report, read those few pages first and then go through the rest of the numbers. There's one feature in the report this year that wasn't there last year I want to point out. It's fairly minor, but you have a new financial statement. And it's on page 24. It's an agency fund. It's a statement of fiduciary assets and liabilities agency fund. So that was an agency fund there. Well, what happened is this. The town for many years has had this health reimbursement plan for employees. and the town pays the money into it. And in all prior years, a third party, you have an administrator that handles this. And the bank account was in the third party's name, and so it's totally off your books. But they changed administrators during 2020, and the new administrator says, we want the money, the bank account, to be held in the town's name. So this is money that doesn't belong to the town, but it's in one of your bank accounts. So you're in a fiduciary capacity. So we just show that money, and it's due to employees. It's for their health benefits. If they, they send in their invoices and the administrator pays the bill. The town puts the money in, I think it's first of the year every year, right? First of the year, you pay it in, and in the past, you've essentially been done with it, but now it still shows up on your financial statements. Next year, it's probably gonna be in a different type of fund. It may be a custodial fund. I've got to look into that. The reason for that is there's a new accounting standard called GASB Statement Number 84 on fiduciary funds that goes into effect for the 21 fiscal year. And they're doing away with agency funds, so it has to move to some other type fund, and they've created some new type funds that didn't exist before. So it'll show up in one of those next year.
Fascinating.
I can tell I'm getting boring again. Let's talk more numbers.
I was thinking that, I just didn't want to say it.
The financial highlights, there's a few extra copies of this around if anybody wants one. I'm gonna send the PDF to Rebecca, so if anybody wants one, I doubt seriously if they're gonna be a high demand item, but if they are, we try to comply. So what I've done is a 5-year comparison, year over year, on your governmental revenues and your governmental expenditures. First one is governmental revenues on page 2. And what we see is, like most people, your revenues went down a little bit in 2020, but the town was very fortunate. Your total revenues, governmental funds, decreased from $6,433,000 to $6,213,000. That's a decrease of $220,000, or about 3.4%. If you look at the line item called licenses and permits, you can see it decreased a little over $200,000. That probably was due to COVID. That's basically building permits. And I think construction activity was probably constrained during 2020. And the line item right above that is intergovernmental revenues. These are revenues that are shared from the state, like the half-cent sales tax, local option gas tax, and these sorts of things. Those were clearly reduced because of COVID. But the town came off pretty good. A 3% decrease is very good for 2020. There were a lot of governmental entities that took a really big hit. The town was very fortunate. Page 3, you can see the same thing in picture format, and living color. You can see that the revenues have been very stable over the last 5 years. There's small oscillations. Taxes, which is your primary source, ad valorem taxes are the primary source of revenue. Out of the 6.2 million, 4.5 million of those came from taxes. They were flat. They were 0.5% more in 20 than they were in 19. So let's go to page 4. We'll look at the other side of the coin. Revenues is the money coming in. Expenditures is the money going out. In this case, the money going out increased from $5,049,000 to $5,784,000. That's an increase of almost $750,000, or about 14.5%. But if you look up, you'll see that capital outlay increased about $699,000, and general administrative $200,000. The capital outlay is what's happening there is you've started this long-term capital improvement program in the town, and this is kind of the first phase of it has kicked in. So you expect to see this number being, as big as it is now, or even bigger over the next few to several years, depending on how long it takes to complete this capital improvement program. Other than that, things were pretty much flat. Physical environment went down $255,000. The physical environment was the underground program, and there was, as you're all aware, there was a big pause in that during 2020, and looks like it's going to be completed sometime during this year. Is that accurate to say?
Yes.
Again, you can go on page 5 and see the same thing in picture format, except for 2017, they've been fairly stable. And when there is change, you can see the dark blue, it's the capital outlay, which are not normally recurring type expenditures, you know, as programs come and programs, or projects come and projects go. Page 6 is the general fund balance. Fund balance is essentially the equity. If you were an individual, they'd say it was your net worth. You take all your assets, subtract off all your liabilities, and what you're left with is your equity. So the equity or net worth of the town and the governmental funds is shown on page 6, but unlike individuals or for-profit businesses where they just have equity, in a governmental entity, you have different categories of equity. And they range from the best to the worst, the best being unassigned. What that means is that's money that's available for use at the discretion of the town. And assigned is money you've already earmarked to use. Restricted is money that some outside party is earmarked to use, and you can only use it for that specific purpose. Non-spendable is in essence money you've already spent, like a prepaid or an inventory and stuff you've already purchased but haven't used. So the town has a very high percentage of unassigned, and the reason for that is this capital projects program we're talking about that you're embarking upon now. Over the years, the town, if you look back in 2016, you had 2.6 million in fund balance, unassigned fund balance. You now have 6.4. And it looks to me like what the town, I know your avowed purpose is to do this capital improvement plan without debt. And you have accumulated the funds to do most, if not all of it, very successfully, it looks like. You know, your unassigned fund balance is about 120% of a year's expenditures. You got 1.2 years worth of expenditures sitting in the bank. If you didn't get another nickel, you could pay all your bills for 1.2 years. Actually, a little more than that. The 600,000 you see assigned, that's fund balance that you budgeted to use in the next year's budget. So you budgeted to use down some of this fund balance. You've been building it up. Now you're starting to budget to use it up, which is a very good way to do business. Speaking of debt, it's not on our chart here, but if you look at the financial statements, it'll say your debt's about $500,000 at the end of 2020. But as we sit here today, it's only $269,000. It's paid off. There's a payment every April the 1st. You've already made the April 1st payment for 21. There's one more payment of $269,000 in 2022, and the town will be debt-free. So if you did have to take on some debt, you'd be starting from a zero level if you take on debt next year, anytime after April 1st next year. And hopefully you'll be able to complete the program without taking on any, but if you do, you're not going to be taking on a lot of debt. The debt, by the way, is related to the undergrounding. It's being paid off by the special assessments. They will also be ending in the near future. Again, page 7, you can see a chart that shows how the fund balance has increased over the last, it should say, yeah, I goofed again now. Look down the bottom, it says here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should say 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. That's a flaw of my system again. But I think we've kind of covered that. The last page is the other big fund in the town, and that's the Water Enterprise Fund. By the way, the governmental activities, all those revenues and expenditures covers the 3 funds that you have. Most of the activity goes on in the general fund. There's a special revenue fund for the infrastructure surtax. There was, what, 70-odd thousand in revenues there, and there was about 150,000 or so in special assessments. But the vast majority of those revenues and expenditures are in the general fund. Page 8, you can see this year that the revenues for the water fund were essentially flat. They were down 1.1%. Very small decrease. Your biggest expense is the purchase of the water that you resell. You can see that went down 3.6%. Those two move kind of sort of in tandem. They're not exactly equal, but they move more or less on parallel tracks. And the remainder of the stuff, depreciation, that's the depreciation on your capital assets. That's pretty much a fixed cost. And then the rest of the stuff is minor by comparison. Your total expenses decreased 17%, went down 138,000, almost 139,000, from 950,000 to 811,000. And you wound up with $269,000 operating income, with then if you add in the, interest income and the capital contributions, the capital contributions are the reserve fee where you're charging the money to set it aside to do future improvements to the system. They consider that a capital contribution as opposed to an operating revenue. But your net income was about $435,000 in the enterprise fund for you, which was very good.
Quick question, please.
Yes, sir.
For the years 2015 through 19, there was a management fees of $90,000. Then there's no management fee in 2020. What is that?
Those were fees paid from the enterprise fund to the general fund. There's another line item down there, payment in lieu of taxes. That's also a payment from the enterprise fund to the general fund.
Why did we change that, Rebecca?
We deferred it because we're diverting all of those funds to the capital improvement. So it's just an internal transfer of funds between the two funds, but we just thought it would be best to try to maximize our funds for the capital improvement plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Just by way of comparison with the rest of the world, typically, most municipalities use the water and sewer fund or these enterprise funds like this as cash cows to subsidize the general fund. If you go look at the larger municipalities around the county and theirs, you might not see this management fee, but what you'll see is a huge transfer. Some of the larger municipalities transfer millions of dollars out of their water and sewer fund over to their general fund to subsidize debt.
I have 3 questions on the.
Yes, sir.
Here's one of my questions. Here they are. Let me reference first the June 9th, 2021, this document.
Oh, yes.
And it's nice for me to be educated. There's an appendix 1 related to uncorrected misstatements. I assume that there's about 13 of those. That's kind of customary and typical of any audit, is it not?
And, these are actually the corrected ones. These were the adjusting journal entries to change it from the records that were given to us to the ones that were used to prepare the financial statements. But typically on our small governmental clients, we have quite a few of these. I guess in theory, you'd wish you didn't have any, but that's not the way the world works out.
Right. So this is typical. That's okay.
There's nothing.
That's great.
It's actually unusual the other way. We have 1 or 2 clients that are, a lot bigger, and they have, CPAs that were former auditors and those sorts of things as their chief financial officer. We usually do very few journal entries on those, but for the rest of them, we typically do several.
Thank you. Then there's something referred to as other post-employment benefit plan, and that's where retirees are able to continue with their health care, but they pay for it.
Correct.
Why is it shown as a liability on page 18? I don't really quite understand. It's not an obligation.
This happens to be one where I think GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and they promulgate all the accounting standards for governmental entities. And this arose from GASB statement number 74 and 75. So why do you gotta have 2 statements, Well, one of them is, there are actually OPEB plans where places put money in a trust to pay healthcare benefits for employees after they retire. I'd refer you to the town of Palm Beach. They actually have one. They got $30 or $40 million sitting in the trust fund. So if you have that trust fund and it prepares a financial report, GASB 74 tells you what the financial statement should look like in that. The employer, their disclosures and financial reporting is governed by GASB statement number 75. Okay, so the town's implementing 75, but I think GASB went off the reservation on this, and I've said this in a public forum a few years ago to the former director of the GASB, is a guy named Dave Bean. He was the head staff at GASB for 20 years, I guess. He retired this year. But anyway, what happens is this. In the state of Florida, there's a statute that says if you provide your employees health insurance, when they retire, you have to allow them the opportunity to purchase that health insurance at the same price that all the active employees are paying for it. So what happens on health insurance is it's age rated. That is, a 25-year-old can buy health insurance for a lot less than a 65-year-old. So if you got a 62-year-old that's retired and decides to purchase it, I say 62 because they can only do this from up to age 65. At age 65, Medicare is primary. and nobody's gonna buy health insurance because it won't cover everything. You have to be on Medicare if you're not employed full-time and on your employer's insurance. And so if they've retired from you, they can't, be on yours full-time, they have to take Medicare at 65. So this is gap coverage only for a few years from retirement age to 65. So what happens is you get to pay for the subsidy. If you have, say, every one of your employees took it when they retired, they all retired at, say, 62, and for 3 years they were on there. So you would have several people older on your insurance plan, much older than your employees. So the rate you're paying for your current employees would be higher because of that. And it's called an implicit rate subsidy. And so the actuaries assume that a certain percent and that, some percentage of the employees will take this, they'll take it, they assume a retirement age, and it will go from there to 65, and they calculate what that liability would be, they present value it back. And then they say you have to show this as an expense while they're still working. Okay, so you accrue that liability now. But this is where I don't think, it's like, if you got a loan, then you got a liability. If you got a defined benefit pension plan, you got a liability. If somebody retires, you're gonna have to write them a check. With a loan, you're gonna have to write somebody a check. But the only check you will ever write for this is your monthly health insurance expense. You pay the health insurance bill every month for your employees. So,
Okay.
to me, it's a little bit hokey.
Yeah, I understand, but effectively what you're telling me is that because of the benefit accruing to retirees, the effective cost of health insurance for existing employees where we participate in covering that is costing town more money, so that's the concept.
Well,
Okay.
it's not costing you more now, unless you actually have somebody that's retired and taking it, it's not affecting it now.
Well, right,
Yeah, this is
but
not-
but I assume that we do have people taking afterwards, right?
It's unusual for anybody to take it.
Oh, so thank you, that's even better, okay.
Most places either never get anybody that takes it, or if they do take it, they take it and a few months later, they say, man, this is too expensive, I can't afford this, I gotta go find some other coverage. So it's very unusual to get somebody to take it long term.
I don't believe we have any.
We had one, Officer Maury, when he retired. He was on it for a little while, but it is expensive. So he is no longer a part of the plan as far as I.
Good question. Okay, one last question, Rebecca, we're gonna go over the, internal control finding on
The enterprise fund with the bad debt and that
We'll do that later.
yes,
Okay, we're gonna
that's
talk about
what
that
was
later.
raised.
I'm done, thank you. Got any other questions? Ron, thanks very much.
Thank you, we appreciate the opportunity.
And Mr. Mayor, I want to just take a second, Mr. Bennett was talking about the MD&A, which is the Management Discussion and Analysis portion of this. That's purely the production of Ms. Tu, and I want to congratulate her for the fine job she did on that. And I'd also like to thank Commissioner Lyons with his help on our CIP and our cash management program that Ron was been talking about. That's it.
We need a vote to accept the audit.
Oh, we do, okay, is there a motion to approve the audit as presented?
I make a motion to accept the audit as presented in today's meeting.
I'll second it. Mr. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes?
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Okay, let's move on to the American Rescue Act plan.
Okay, and I'll try not to take too much time on this, but I do think it deserves mention. In March, the Congress passed a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act, with $360 billion of that to be provided to help state, local, tribal, and territorial governments mitigate fiscal effects tied to the COVID-19 emergency. I'm going to skip down a little, bring it more to the local information that we have. 19.5 billion of that is dedicated for municipalities in Florida with populations of less than 50,000 people. And so that's the category we would be in. Eligible uses of that money would be construction of publicly owned treatment works, non-point source pollution management, national estuary programs, water and sewer and drainage, basically. And so that's very good for us. Rebecca could get more in the weeds of that. The numbers right now are just estimates, but what we've been provided is that Gulfstream would be eligible for about $413,000.
Very good. Glad to hear. All right, let's move on to any questions about that, by the way? I mean, it's in code at this point, so, but apparently, once it's processed, we'll hopefully be receiving that money. Let's go to the water pressure issue, which is pressing.
Right, okay. What I would like to do is just bring you up to speed as to what we're doing at this point in time. We have met with our friends that are here today at a meeting, and others were in attendance too, over at Gulfstream Shores. And so we've also met a couple times with the city of Delray Beach with respect to this pressure issue. Originally where it was surfacing was mainly on A1A, and now we've found, and what we have was what is known as a looped system. So the pressure should be the same all throughout Gulfstream, and that would include Place au Soleil. And so now, we've found that there's some people in Place au Soleil that have had some sporadic pressure problems. So, and working with the city of Delray Beach, I mean, the manager there and their utility people, we felt like the best way to try to attack this is through a process of elimination. And so that's what we've been doing for the last, month, at least a month. Over here at Gulfstream Shores, I will say that with our upgrade in the utility line out here on A1A, we were able to upgrade the service lines to Gulfstream Shores. They did have one service line that fed 2 meters that were right next to each other. We increased the size of the service line and made 2 of them. So they had 2 service lines, and we moved the meters to either side of the building to try to help the flow. And so we've done that. But so what has happened, we found a spike in the use of water, and it really started around February or March.
Into March.
Into March. And so it was unusual. The numbers were unusual compared to past years. And so that would indicate maybe that there was a leak somewhere. We have not found any evidence of that. And then perhaps high usage. The other specific part of this equation was that the spike, the reduction in pressure typically happened between the hours of like 3 and 7 in the morning. So that would suggest that perhaps everybody's watering their lawn at the same time. And so what we're doing right now, with the help of the police, is we're doing an assessment of the different areas of the town about, regarding watering. And so we're in the middle of that right now, and we'll probably be finished with that in about a week, but we're covering the entire town, doing it by sections, and our police are helping us do that because they're here between the hours of 3 and 7. And so I think early signs are that, there are some areas that are watering way too much. I mean, we do have codes with respect to watering lawns, and you're really only allowed, we have the odd and even days that you can water, and we're really only supposed to water 3 days a week, and it has to be between certain times of the day. It's typically in the mornings. And we also don't allow any watering on Friday. So we are going to send out a general letter to all of our residents to remind them of these codes. we sent one out before, but it's been a couple of years, so there may be some evidence that the overwatering might be contributing to this. So
The first day of the actual investigation, what we wanna call investigation, I had 47 homes use water, just on A1A,
Just on what?
on A1A, which is a 12-inch line, 47 homes that usually have on an average a 2-inch meter, an inch and a half. We're talking 175 to 150 gallons of water per minute. So that's,
So you're saying that usage is different from the previous year's usage, correct?
yes,
And can you not also review the bi-monthly charges for water and just see those which have
I
ramped
did
up
see an
significantly
increase
in
as
the
far as
last 12 months?
usage when I did the re-reads for this actual quarter of the water meter reads that I did. And a lot of them literally were all on A1A. At least a good 45% of them that had really high usage were coming from A1A on Ocean. And we're not talking 20, 30,000 gallons, we're talking 100, 125, 130,000 gallons of water. Really high numbers.
Well, could that limited area account for the pressure drop that we're seeing?
Well, if we're in that main drag that we're using off of a 12-inch line, a lot of the consumption, if it's being drawn off of that same line, it's gonna decrease pressure everywhere else. Absolutely.
Yeah, but my question is that sufficient reduction of water in the loop line
Yes,
to drop
it
the
is.
pressure town-wide?
Yeah.
You believe it is?
That's right.
Okay, good.
Because we're looking at 1.5 and 2-inch meters that consume a lot of water per minute. If it was something that, wouldn't be that large of a number, then I would disagree with my own theory, but it would put a really heavy strain on it, because there's so many large properties that are consuming it.
And the larger water main that we installed recently along A1A,
Correct.
would that play into this or not because of the nature of the loop system?
It would have at first when we first started it, but after it's been in the ground already and it's been fed, I don't see it. Because the system's already been generated, the pressure's already been built. It may have troubles at first trying to create that pressure because it's new, it's a larger diameter pipe. We went from a 6 to an 8, and then from the 8, we went to a 12. So, there's different areas where they dropped in sizes, where they were smaller, where they increased to larger sizes. So
But once those pipes are filled,
they
the
stay
pressure
then it evens out.
is evened out, right?
It should be significantly more pressure because the line is charging, it's a larger pipe. And it holds more volume of water in the line itself.
Okay.
So we should be done with our assessment, using the police. And we've already begun to look at the readings that, their report so far, but that's really only on A1A. I think they've completed, from Pelican up to Gulf Stream,
1,400.
Gulfview, I'm sorry. And then we'll do the core, and then we'll do Place Off Away. So once it's done, we'll be able to really, I think, identify individual homes, that, perhaps we might need to actually visit and talk to them about. We do, our ordinance does provide for penalties for people that violate this. Now, I don't think we've probably ever done that, but obviously I think the situation is such that we need to enforce it.
Well, it sounds like we're zeroing in on the cause of it, which is good.
But correct me if I'm wrong, I think we'll be able to actually identify individual homes.
That's actually the ones causing most of the problems that we're having as far as pressure.
So we hope by next month's meeting, we should
Yes.
have a complete report.
I hope so.
As a secondary step, do you think it might be wise to educate the landscape people? I know they come into my property, my brother's property, they want to turn it on every day, it's much water. They think more water is better. I learned that less water is better. But if we could just get, there's 3 or 4 big operators.
Right. Well, that's a good idea. Now, once the police are done, then obviously Anthony and Wayne are here, and the first thing they do in the mornings is to drive through all of our neighborhoods. and they still see people watering the lawns, so, I mean.
I see water collecting on the road.
Right, oh yeah, I mean, that's been the problem down on Old School, remember, it's the lowest
Yeah,
part of it.
I mean, obviously it's too much water. So
Right, so I think it will be individual visits, but in addition to that, I'm gonna be putting out a general letter reminding people of our ordinance, early next week.
I speak to Michello and Glenn.
Yeah, and here's all the other issue, is a lot of the owners, the residents, don't know how often they're.
Well, they don't, that's why I encourage you to speak to.
Right.
I have actually spoken to some of the larger landscapers that have quite a few accounts on the property, and let them know that, hey, listen, we need to make sure that we're following our water restrictions. So that way you can water the days that you're supposed to water. And I instruct them to go to the website, so that way they know, and I speak to the crew chiefs that are on staff that are present, so that way they know that I have spoken to them. I haven't reached out to the actual owners of the companies that we have contact with just yet, because I didn't want to take it to that extreme just yet, see if they can actually correct it themselves, but apparently from the way it looks, they haven't done anything.
And you're gonna send out a letter, right?
Yes.
Very good. Do you have any questions?
Well, I really appreciate your comments and your detective work that you are doing, because this is definitely a mystery. And
Absolutely.
thank you for helping
And
us
we've been working with Gulf Stream Shores for a couple of years
for a long time, and we're getting close, it sounds like. Do you want to make a comment on your conversations with the City of Delray Beach Water? Were they helpful to you in your conversations about this issue?
Yes, to a point. I mean, but we have asked them to take some pressure readings at the interconnect where it comes in on the south end of town, because it comes from their water plant into the interconnect, and, we'd like to get an accurate, reading as it enters into that interconnect. So they didn't have an answer for me, when we met with them, but I've asked them to do that for us.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Appreciate your efforts in that regard. Let's move on then to the Australian pine tree removal.
Yeah, I won't take long. We talked about this a little last time, but I just wanted to bring this up to you so that if you do see, we do have proposals to remove 13 trees. And so I just wanted to get a better idea of why. They have three categories: the risk assessment, the condition of it, and then a third one that goes into the equation as to how to determine what trees should be removed, and that's called target. And so a target could be the road, it could be a golf cart path, it could be a parking lot. It could be overhead lines, or it could be other trees. And so we do have a couple of those trees. Actually, the target was that it was a problem if they fell into a very valuable tree. So it takes a lot of, the people that really know what they're talking about, and this is Barton Tree Service, they're the experts at this. And so I got a little better understanding on how they arrive at their conclusion. So I just wanted to tell you, to try to assure you that they just don't do a window drive and that looks bad. And so they look at the root systems, and so there's a difference if there's an injury of the tree in the middle of the trunk or the root systems. So
what schedule do we follow with respect to those 13 trees?
I have the proposals, and it's less than $15,000, so I'm gonna give them the go-ahead. I just wanted to let everybody know, if you see some of the work going on out on A1A, that's why it's happening. It's part of our management of the Australian pine.
Okay, good, thank you. Moving on then to the debt issue you raised.
Yes, I'll hand that over to Rebecca.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. I was multitasking, I'm so sorry. So we're talking about the bad debt right now? Yes, okay. So, prior to the current financial and town management staff, there was a procedure that was done at the end of the fiscal year where inactive water accounts that had an outstanding balance that was deemed uncollectible was moved to bad debt and then just kind of erased off the book. So I haven't been able to locate the policy authorizing that procedure. So what Greg and I would like to do is ask the commission, after we've made diligent efforts to collect inactive accounts. This does not count for anybody that's living or still living in town. These are accounts where people have left or they're deceased, and we've made diligent efforts time and time again to collect the outstanding balances. We would like permission, formally recognize that it's a policy that after we've made diligent effort that we can write that bad debt off of the book. It's causing an odd problem. That's where that finding came from in the audit. It's taken us a couple of years to really create a tremendous amount of internal controls, and it's been a very arduous, laborious process. But this is where we have finally determined that this discrepancy is coming from, because they're in the inactive account, so they're not current. And so it doesn't reconcile back to our current year's accounts receivable and the revenue sources. So what we'd like to do is, if we've made diligent effort and it's an inactive account and the person, it's either going to be that we need to refer it out to a debt collection company, which I would prefer not to do. This is about $20,000 that's been accumulating since probably 2015. So I would like to just have a policy that says that the management can use discretion if we've made diligent efforts to just write it off. Just clean up our books and move forward. Are there any questions?
I think there should be a financial limit on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, before you write it off, this sounds like a bunch of stale accounts, but every year we should have a report that says, here's a list. And because what I don't quite understand is, when you close on a house, the closing agent's supposed to identify any blah, blah, blah on utilities. And so I'm not sure how these, are we developing any new cases? In the last 2 years, anything?
There was another problem that during the lien searches, there was not this effort to collect this outstanding balance. Because you can say that this is the current balance on the utility account, but you can't really get a final read until the account actually gets closed. And so prior to this, there was a discrepancy in our lien search that it wasn't accounting for that period of time between they do the lien search and when they close.
Can we fix that now?
We have fixed that. Renee has worked very diligently to fix that process. So we have like I said, we have increased internal controls exponentially to try to rectify this, but this is kind of the core problem. I'll be happy to give you a report of what we are asking, but at this point, I would just like to clean up our books, so.
I'm okay with wiping the slate clean, but subsequently, a report so we can see that we're not.
Yeah, just like this, that should be brought once a year to the
We would do it probably in September, because it's
Yeah,
the end
part
of
of
the
the
fiscal year, right?
Yeah.
process. But I'm not quite sure why liens weren't filed and those wouldn't be taken care of at closing. I mean, our houses sell, but we don't have vacant homes. So, not now. But you're saying we're not, so.
I don't know how to answer that question.
So we're good with it for this year, and then we'll bring it back next
Exactly.
year.
Yes.
Gotcha.
We need a motion on this, Mr. Nazaro, or
Guidance.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't think so, because it's just a policy. I just want to let you know that this is in the
We'll do
spirit
this
of
once a
full
year.
transparency. I just want y'all to know, because I feel like I think
I think
it's
there
something you
should
should
be a
know.
motion. What we're doing is you're officiating an obligation for $20,000. I don't think that should be left to staff discretion. I think the commission should see that information and vote on whether to do it or not.
Now, that amount is the cumulative total for the last 6 years.
I got it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that it wasn't any one individual,
No, I
that was, okay.
I know. No, I think we should vote on it. So if there's a motion to approve the, I forgot how you phrased it.
This is just a policy to write off bad debt for inactive water accounts.
To write off the bad debt from inactive water accounts for the present.
In the amount of
In the amount of approximately $20,000.
Will the commission determine a policy for this, a general policy?
I think the general policy should be that in the future, a report will be delivered to the commission once a year, identifying the accounts and a decision to be made by the commission on approving or disapproving.
That works for me?
If we would like to outline a specific procedure that we follow, we could do it by resolution at the next meeting. That may be a little bit.
Okay.
Something gets drafted a little more formally.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let's just vote on this as far as dishwashing away this debt.
I'm good at,
Okay.
writing off your 20,000.
Yeah, I think we have a motion. You made a motion, it's not a bid.
I think not yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll make a motion
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
write off 20,000 of delinquent, inactive water accounts.
Okay, a second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes?
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, let's move to the budget hearing dates.
Okay, and we're almost there, if you can believe it. So we need to set our budget hearing dates in September. So the first one that we do is the tentative budget hearing, and so we're recommending that we do that on September 10th, which is our regular meeting date. But now we have to do that at 5:01, so our regular meeting would have to start at 3:30 or 4.
Yeah. So we'll start at 4 o'clock
Right,
on September 10th for a regular meeting,
right.
followed by the tentative budget meeting at 5:01.
And then our final budget hearing, we have really 2 days that we were suggesting. One would be Wednesday, September 22nd, or Thursday, September 23rd, again. And we wouldn't have a regular meeting before that, but it'd just be 5:01. So it's either Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be here for one of them, I know that.
I mean, Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know my calendar, but do you have a preference one way or the other? No. Whatever staff prefers.
Okay. All right.
Wednesday,
Wednesday. And that was September what?
That would be,
22nd.
September 22nd.
Second, and that's at 5:01, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we need to vote on that, or is this sufficiently set, tentative?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have a report from Baxter and Woodman on the drainage basin issue. Very good. Jeff?
Thank you. Yes, we're performing a evaluation of drainage within the town, and what I wanted to give you is a summary of the modeling that's been done so far and where that has led us. So our scope was to model existing conditions. This is a hydrologic and hydraulic model, very highly detailed. Not the entire town, but basically the core basin and areas around that, including Little Club. And the model was to assess what's happening currently and then to compare that to alternatives that we could design for improvements. First one being evaluate additional pumping as a way to reduce flooding. The other to evaluate an additional lake within Little Club, to see what that could do about the flooding. And also we were going to evaluate, and we have evaluated ponding issues. This is not necessarily flooding. This is areas where water is trapped. And we have, pop this up, we've got over 20 locations within the core basin where we did witness some ponding. We went out right after a fairly decent rain event and took pictures and georeferenced all of those locations. We're still looking at those. We think that the majority of that can be taken care of with the road improvements that are done with the CIP. But we have all those georeferenced. We know exactly where they are, and they will be addressed then, so that we can make sure the roads are graded properly and take care of those problems. If they can't take care of the problems, then we may be looking at another inlet or something if it's close enough to an existing system. But I really want to talk about the modeling and what's been done for that. We looked at a total watershed of 158 acres. Over on the right side here, this is LiDAR information, that's topography. Anything that's dark brown is high. Anything that is looking like green or greenish blue is a low area. So there's some very low areas within the golf club, and there's also, of course, in the core basin, some low areas in here. We divided all this up into sub-basins based on where the flow is going to go, which is based on the topography and also based on the existing drainage system. And we also did a site visit at the Little Club because we didn't have very much information there. We met with the superintendent. We searched for plans to see what they had for original drawings and what was intended here. Couldn't find anything. So he took us out, he was very gracious, took us out and drove around the site with his golf cart and verified everything. We've got an interconnected lake system with culverts. Everything flows to the north. There is a weir located, my eyesight's very good, right about here. And it turns out that that weir doesn't really affect the drainage. It's a fairly low, very low weir.
What's a weir?
A weir is a structure that water has to overflow, and it's for controlling water level. And sometimes if they're fairly small, they can constrict the flow. So what we found is that it's not really constricting the flow. It's in the model, but the model verified that it's not constricting flow because it's very wide and it's low. The elevations are about elevation 0. So I'm not sure what the original purpose of that weir was, but it didn't really come into play. They also have two 20 cubic feet per second pumps that are located at the north end. And there's also the 24-inch connection right between here and Old School Road. And there is a gate valve on this. I know Anthony's been operating that. It's had to keep it closed several times because there actually has been backflow from the golf course. When you get a big rain though, it will go the other way. So it can go both ways, and it's right now it's a manual gate. So that's kind of a burden on Anthony to deal with that. The core basin down in this area has got the two 7 CFS pump stations. And that's the one that was constructed, I guess, it's been about 10 years or so, I'm not sure. But it's pumping, I don't know if you can see, there's a red line here, pumps to a pressurized pipe, and then it comes out into the intercoastal at this location. And there's also a 24-inch pipe here. And that's really all that is serving that area where the flooding is occurring. And what we found with the topography and looking at the subbasins, this area is actually fairly large that comes down into this. This is the total area that's draining to that core basin. And it's 41.8 acres. It was fairly surprising to us to see that this much area up to the north on A1A is actually coming down in this direction. That's because there's a bit of a ridge here. And you can even see it on C Road. When you turn on C Road, you have to go up a little bit and then down. So everything's being channeled down from this location and then combining into this location. And it's getting to the lowest part, which is right along here. So I want to talk about the two scenarios that we had as tasks to evaluate. What this is a map of existing versus proposed, or not proposed, but existing versus that scenario. This is a map of flood depth. And the red is the worst, it's about 1.5 feet. And the existing conditions are on the left, and then the scenario results are on the right. So this is scenario 1. This is basically adding another pump station, same size as the one you have now. But if you had 2 of those, what kind of benefit could we see? And what we're actually seeing is not very much benefit. So we looked at our next scenario, which was to add a lake within Little Club. Now this is shown here, but this is really just for illustration purposes. The lake could be anywhere. It has to be determined with the golf course. But if we were able to enlarge a lake to 1/2 acre, this is what the result would be. not much benefit with this either. So then we started looking at some other alternatives that weren't in the scope. I wanted to verify for myself, is this an issue of just not getting the water out fast enough? And it is. I went ahead and arbitrarily changed this 24-inch pipe to a 48-inch pipe, and you can see the benefit of that. These depths drop down drastically. And it even helps the golf course because they don't have to send so much water to the north. I wanted to run one more alternative, like what would happen if we diverted flow, that flow along A1A that was up in this area. What if we were able to capture that somehow, get that past the ridge and send it down into the golf course? Also, I included with this scenario enlarging the lake, or one of the lakes, because I figured there's going to be more runoff. We're going to probably need more storage in the golf course to deal with that. It actually turns out that the lake is not big enough for this scenario. You can see the expansion of some flooded areas compared to what's on the left side. There's more flooding now in the golf course, which we can't do. We can't flood them out more as a result of trying to help another area. And also, it's not really helping Polo Drive and Old School Road. So this really wasn't a very viable alternative. So the one that does work out is scenario 3, which is replacing that 24-inch pipe with a 48-inch pipe. And the problem with that is it exceeds South Florida Water Management District's rules. I think I discussed that when I came here the last time, that they have a rule for allowable discharge, pre versus post. You're not allowed to increase discharge. When I say discharge, I mean the discharge rate, how many cubic feet per second, for example. So I decided we should meet with South Florida Water Management District, see what their rules currently are. I mean, what are they doing in situations like this? I've heard that they are making some accommodations. So Greg and Trey attended a meeting with me with the district, and we found out that they do have a new general permit process, and it's for retrofit systems, such as this, where the area has been built out for years. It's not going to add any new development, and the volume of water that would be discharged would remain the same. In that case, they can allow an increase in discharge rate, but they're looking for water quality in that situation. And what I mean by water quality is you can obtain water quality by swales or exfiltration trenches or lakes. So right away, they seized on the fact that we were looking at adding possibly a lake area. So they suggested putting that in with the scenario as a way to provide water quality, some additional water quality to the system. So I put that back in the model. It does work. It looks about the same as just doing the pipe, but it is doable as far as the numbers go. And let me put an exhibit up. There we go. This would be the proposed improvements now. Here is the pipe increase. This goes from 24 to 48 inches. We'd have to do a seawall repair here. We have to look very closely at that with a structural engineer, see what happens. If we may have to take out a panel of the seawall. Otherwise, we just have to do some type of repair. We need a 48-inch inline check valve here to make sure that water doesn't backflow into the system. We need a weir at this location with a new inlet because they want us to be able to send the first flush of water up in this direction through the system and up into the golf course where it could be treated in the new lake. They just want to have that treatment, that the water pushed up in that direction just for that first initial amount of rain. And then when it builds up high enough, it just goes over that weir and out through that 48-inch pipe. In green is the existing pump station that stays. No change with that. That actually becomes very useful in situations where you have a king tide, for example, and you have rain at the same time. If you have a king tide, you're not going to be able to discharge unless you have the pump station. So it remains very useful, even though it's really fairly undersized for the amount of flow that's coming down to this basin. And then we wanted to have some improvements on this end of the pipe, the 24-inch pipe that goes up into the golf course. I think we need to have a inline check valve on that. So Anthony doesn't have to fiddle with the manual valve. This will be an automatic valve. It'll allow flow only in one direction into the golf course. So those are the improvements. I know there's a lot more to do as far as seeing this through, but I just wanted to give you, where we are today and what we found out. I mean, this is something to start, and I know there would be a lot of coordination, especially with the golf club. And also, this could be an opportunity to address the issue of the low area in through here, where king tides currently come through and then they get into the street. If we're doing work in this area, it could be, coordination with this homeowner in order to raise up those elevations a foot or so, and that would take care of that problem as well.
Regarding the golf club, the emphasis is adding a half acre to that one water feature, the first one. But all three water hazards are actually connected to this drainage pipeline.
Right.
Could that be, the half acre be distributed out among the three so that it's not quite as dramatic a change to the first one?
Yeah, what we're actually doing is trying to increase that lake to a half an acre. So the new part is not actually a half acre, it's about a quarter acre. The existing part of that is a quarter acre. And the reason is South Florida Water Management District doesn't consider a lake as providing water quality unless it's at least half an acre. So these two lakes right now, according to them, don't provide water quality. This one's large enough too. But if we could make one of these or another lake within the golf course expanded out to a half an acre, then it would be providing more water quality in their eyes.
Back to the objective of water quality, other alternatives, is there a way of scrubbing the water, having a, if you will, a plant, as opposed to, I'm just exploring different options.
There are stormwater filters, and a lot of municipalities are doing those. South Florida Water Management District's not giving any credit for those yet. I don't know why, but they're afraid that they may not be effective over time. They take a lot of maintenance. You got to keep cleaning them out. But they're not allowing those for water quality right now.
Are those the boxes that you're talking about?
There's, they put like a vortex system.
Yeah.
Yeah, they put the water in. Another problem with them is that they create head loss, which means water has to go up higher upstream as they're working. So it's kind of counterproductive too. But the other ways of water quality are swales and exfiltration trenches, but we can't really do that in the road right of way. Because the road is too low, it's too close to the water table, and we don't have enough room. So unless we can find somewhere else within the basin to do something like that, that there is room, but I didn't see anything like that offhand. I think probably the best alternative is the lake, but if the lake doesn't work out, then that's something else we could look into.
And you believe that's going to be required by South Florida Water Management?
They did
to
say,
get this
yeah, in their
project
meeting,
through?
they said that that is their concern. They would want additional water quality. They didn't tell us exactly how much, and I told them I didn't think we could get very much because you can't back up the water with a weir too high and force it around because we're already so close to the water table. So I think they understood that. But they're willing to work with us. I was really pleased, and I think it really helped having Greg and Trey there. You know, it's they're the stakeholders, representing the stakeholders, and they really do want to do something to help. And I think that's why they, made this pitch of using this process for retrofit permitting and just limiting it to the water quality.
Yes, to clarify something. So on the lake that you've identified here, did you say that the addition is a half acre or, with?
Actually, it brings it, the extension
existing-
brings it to a half
Right,
acre.
okay.
Right, I didn't understand, so it's a quarter acre.
Yeah, that one in particular, if it ends up somewhere else though, or if it has to be a full separate new lake, it would have to be a half acre.
We have the president of the Little Club here, I wanted Mr. Curtis, because, I think it's a par three, it's fairly narrow. I don't know, you'd have to have some engineering analysis of how you might be able to create an extra quarter acre water feature there without disrupting
Exactly.
play.
And Mayor, just segue, we've had some discussion with our folks from Little Club, and they did mention, this hole is basically, if you were to put the lake there, you've taken away the entire fairway.
Yeah.
Right.
And
This one doesn't work.
yeah, and so we recognize that now, and so we've had some discussions between our conversation, and we were looking at that small lake. Oh, God, contact list. The small lake in between the two large ones, as perhaps an area that maybe you could expand. And the reason we were looking at that is we saw that there's a row of trees there. If you can see, point to that, yeah. Kind of right in there. And so that would indicate to me that that's obviously not in the middle of a fairway. And so we were looking at that smaller lake perhaps to maybe increase.
Well, you still have to make it half an acre, it's gonna take up a lot. Right, it has to be half.
Yeah, I made a figure of
But
that.
it appeared, and Jeff brought in another, right here. So he had, gone back to his desk, overnight and come up with another, idea here that, we hadn't even talked about, so.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be here, it can be anywhere.
Yeah, right, anywhere.
As long as it's connected to the lake system.
Can I go back to the original issue? I think I've been in my house 11, 12 years. It's only been recent, this might be a really dumb question, but before we start trying to fix something, maybe it's not broken. And I'm the one who actually raised the issue with the town manager, that we can't have this flooding, but why suddenly did we have this issue? Because we didn't have it all the time, did we?
Flooding on Polo?
Oh, yeah,
Have we always had it?
I used to take the kids in a canoe up, Old School.
Okay,
when we did.
I withdraw that comment. So I expect, there's a point in it.
I think
I just wanted to throw.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because I think that things have been getting, they say that the storms are getting more intense, and sea level rise has been about 5 inches so far, so that affects the head differential for discharge.
So we clearly have a problem, so we
Yeah.
don't need to debate that.
And also, over time, a lot of these homes get replaced with bigger homes or expansions on the homes, and they get raised, and that takes away storage, and the road stays the same, so everything goes to the road. So all that, having more home area, more impervious area, that all doesn't get a chance to now percolate. That goes straight to the road.
Wherever there was, as far as storage capacity on the property, where there was existing natural swell that they put in originally when the homes were built, now the elevations have to be higher because of that, to compensate for what you're saying.
Yes.
As far as the water coming in from the intercoastal, now that elevation that was being used as a buffer for the water to percolate is no longer there now, it's disappearing.
And homes have to be built higher, the finished floors have to be higher every time a new home is rebuilt. That's the FEMA requirement, and it's going up again.
Right.
So it leaves, it'd be a pretty steep fall to try to put some retention on the lot and then come back up. It's just pretty much coming straight down to the road.
I think what Mr. Lyons may be referring to is last year in October, we had, during the king tide.
Yeah.
I mean, we did have, that whole Polo Old School area was the tightest I've ever seen it, and I think even the chief.
It went up to Gulfstream Road too.
Right, and so I think the chief even said it's really, that was highest, maybe you'd ever seen it, right?
This was when the king tide over crested the
Right.
property,
Right.
came into the road, right?
That's a very thorough analysis. I really appreciate it. It's enlightening. And it seems to me addressing it will be part of our CIP as well, because it involves the roads. Part of our motivation to redo the roads was to address drainage. This seems like an important component of that, and we need to work with the little club to figure out a way to address this without disrupting the course and play.
Right.
So,
I have a question though, what would be the possibility of expanding the existing lake a little and then doing the remaining to the little lake that's in the center?
We can't split, we have to have at least a half acre total.
On the,
Not total
right?
pieces, but a
Gotcha.
solid lake that's half an acre, or they won't consider it.
what if you connected the middle small lake to the big lake?
Well, they're connected by a culvert here.
No, I mean literally
A
connected.
little channel, that's what I like that, a little channel.
Yeah, we could expand around this corner. and
Yeah.
Through here, have a bridge across or something. I think there's a path there now. I mean, that's a possibility, and then it would become part of this lake,
Right.
which already meets water quality requirements. And it also meets, there's another requirement, 100-foot minimum width the lake has to be. This already meets that as well. So that on average, even if this is narrower than 100 feet, the average width may still be 100 feet because of this.
Roz, what's there between the two lakes?
Yeah, so, first, let me say, obviously, the Little Club is more than willing to work with the town to try to find a solution to the problem that you have. So I would take that as a given. George, our superintendent, and Rob, our general manager, I think have already had some conversations. The challenge that we have on number 14, which is the southernmost lake, is it's going to be very difficult in terms of having a golf course to, I think, widen that enough to get it to a half acre.
Right.
So we have to look at, other solutions. So I have a couple of questions. If I understand it, you need to add about a half acre of filtering capability.
We don't need to add a half an acre, but we need to expand an existing lake so it is a half an acre.
Okay, well, what if,
Or if you get a new lake, entirely new lake, it has to be a half an acre.
Yeah, so my question is, in between the middle lake and the upper lake, the big one, if we were to channel through there to make one joined body of water, which may satisfy the legal requirements, what's there? Is that part of a fairway? Is that,
That's the area between the T,
right there?
13 and the fairway.
Yes.
First thing comes to my mind, if we opened that up and made it wider, had to put a bridge there, the bridge might be in the way of the shot on the hole, depending on the level of the bridge.
Because the bridge is gonna have to require sidings on it, because you can't just put over the bridge.
Right. So that area would be really, I think it might be difficult to put a bridge there. It'd be easier to do a bridge on this, in between the southernmost and that proposed one. Be easier to put a bridge there.
I mean, if you extended the middle one down
Right
to the
there, it'd
bottom.
be easier to put a bridge right there.
I think we need to look at it holistically as to
Yeah.
what the other lakes are, how they meet the requirement. But I guess I'm a little confused. Are they just fixated on having to have a half acre? Or are they fixated, or are they willing to accept that if we add total filtering capacity equivalent to a half acre across the system, would that work for them?
We could ask them that, but I know what their rules are. Their rules are mainly for new development though. So this could be another area where they could, because it's a retrofit, maybe they look the other way.
Yeah, because I think if we could find a way to add a half acre of capacity, right?
Yeah.
Because
looked at it a little bit to say, okay, there are ponds we could widen without, you know, killing the golf course, so to speak. So that may be one thing. The other question I had for you was, I know we have a water table issue there, but I also know that over the years, there's gotta be at least a foot, if not 2 feet of silt in those ponds. Can we get footage back by dredging and taking that out and therefore increasing the capacity of those ponds significantly? Because we do have a lot of square footage there. If you just think about, you know, 50,000 square feet, and you can go down just 1 foot, you've got 50,000 square feet of capacity back.
We can ask them that, because that is another one of their dimensional criteria for a lake to provide water quality. It has to have a certain depth. And I think it depends on the size of the lake.
Yeah, but that would be, I mean, to me, I mean, you're the expert, but to me, that would be the cheapest, easiest way to get a lot of capacity back and be also, I think, ecologically friendly, because the deeper ponds would be better for filtering, would be better for the wildlife, be better for everything.
Right. Now, it doesn't provide any additional storage for stormwater, because storage doesn't start until at the top of the water table and up. So you create all this extra, you're just creating space for groundwater to come into. But to be a better mechanism for cleaning water, a deeper lake is better. Does improve water quality.
So maybe we could combine the two, where we could add some square footage where we can add it and we can deepen it to improve the quality?
Possibly. I'd have to discuss it with them, because I don't know how far they're willing to bend with their retrofitting rules now. So I think they're kind of inventing their own policies to go with this.
Right, well, that's a good opportunity to invent some,
I mean, they're already willing to look the other way on the discharge rate. So I don't know how far they'll go, but we could meet with them again and ask those questions.
Why don't you let us consider this?
Okay.
Between members of the club and staff. We'll come up with some suggestions and then perhaps have another meeting with them. Yeah. See what we can provide. That's what sort of assistance we can get from that.
Right.
Great, but excellent report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really helpful. Okay, ARPB meeting. The next meeting is July 22nd at 8:30, I believe, for anyone who wishes to attend. Finance report, Mr. Dunn?
Yes, you do have, the balance sheet and budget report. Thank you. In your packet, it represents, basically 66% of the budget. And you also have the water report with you, and unless you have any questions, I mean, I didn't, find anything that was really out of order.
We had a pretty thorough accounting. Let's accept those as submitted. Chief Allen, the report.
Okay, request report being accepted. However, I'd like to just clarify one issue on the report, the way it was kind of a typo we had. Under the activity column, it shows wording theft grand motor vehicle and theft petty. But of course, on the right-hand side from there under accounts, they're all zero. I just want to clarify we did that. There were 0 crimes of those nature. We had no car stolen in April.
Good. Any questions? If not, we'll accept the chief's report as submitted. Attorney Nazaro, we have a question with respect to police unionization.
Yes, sir. So, we did receive a request to unionize that was filed with the Public Employees Relations Commission by the Palm Beach County Police Benevolent Association. After receiving petitions from a majority of our officers, the next step is to determine what members of the police department constitute an appropriate bargaining unit, which will essentially be everyone outside of the chief and the captain, so the administrative staff there. And then once that is determined, schedule an election. Once that bargaining unit is determined, within 30 days, an election will be scheduled. So that could be something that happens fairly quickly. So that is all sort of in the works. This is a very recent development. This is just a report to appraise you of the situation. The town will work within the bounds of the law to bring this to a conclusion, whatever that may be. I don't want to speculate in a public meeting what the reasons may be, but certainly we'd be happy to meet with any of the commissioners to discuss that.
And I assume we would need to determine the bargaining representatives for the municipality.
I mean, that's right.
Okay, very good. Just wanted to apprise everyone of that development. Okay, well, let's move on then to the water meter installations. Mr. Dunham?
Yes, okay, so we have, Anthony is here, we have a short presentation for you. You want to go ahead and do that first?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I think we're back to you.
So we do have a piggyback contract with, I believe it's National Metering Services for the installation of all the water meters that we've already purchased. We've been communicating with them, and they are in fact seeing supply issues with some of their other projects that they're installing. So I'm happy to report that, Anthony did see that coming. And we did get that approved last month, and we are, I think, scheduled for our water meters being delivered in a timely manner. We're not going to have any issues with receiving them. So that's good. Now we just need to work on getting them installed. So before you is a piggyback contract to award a contract to National Metering Services, not to exceed $29,000 based on the prices that we were able to obtain through much larger municipalities for those installations. So the big issue that we have in the installation is sort of what we're about to show you regarding the impact this will have on some landscaping. To be able to remove the existing meter and to install the replacement meter, which is all the same size, we need to open the box up, pull the box out. Anthony will do a much better job in the video explaining that process. But we kind of identified 3 different types of.
Do you want the video or you want the PowerPoint presentation?
If you could play the video.
Disregard the acting on the video, please.
And do we have sound?
I don't know why it's not filtering through the sound. So Anthony, pretend you're back here and just read your script.
Alright, well, that there is where I'm indicating how procedure is on the removing of the actual meter box. In order to get to the meter, you have to take the lid off of it, remove any surrounding soil that's around the box that's holding it down, so they can remove it. Expose the nuts that are on both sides of the meter, which are compression fittings. They would have to turn the actual service line off, which is what I'm pointing at right now. And then they'll be able to actually remove it. But in some circumstances that they're going to run into is that actual service meter box is not in an ideal spot. It's not open like that. It's not clean. That's easy to get to. That's something that shouldn't take no more than maybe, even on the worst day, an hour to probably take that out and replace it. With the other subjects that we run into as far as meter boxes being in locations where they're at, he's got actual illustrations of what they actually look like, and that'll kind of give you an idea of what we're referring to.
So we would refer this as a level 1.
Right.
And I also want you to notice how big Anthony is, and so we're not only talking about the space of the meter and the meter box, we're also talking about the employees that have to get in there to do it. And you saw how much room he takes up.
Thank you.
You just tell me and I'll know why.
He's a big boy.
Okay, switch to the first one. So of course, this is what Greg was referring to as sort of a level 1. There's no impact to the landscaping. It's very clear. You move to the next one, Rebecca. that's what it looks like when it's open. Like Anthony said, we've got our shut off here. You're moving that here. There's another side, another one on the service side. So all that needs to be removed to facilitate that, that installation. Again, this is one that would be sort of a level one that's very easy. Next slide, Rebecca. And here is our wonderful town manager assisting with the illustration of what we would call level two, where we have the boxes inside a hedge, and that would probably require just some trimming, but not actually landscaping removal. So there would be just some trimming to facilitate getting into the box and doing that work. You can move to the next one. And again, there it is. You can see that there's some space on either side. The actual bush is not, the stalk is not, the stem is not right on the water meter, so it just need to be trimmed, out on either side. So again, that would be sort of your level two. Again, that's what it looks like. It's kind of buried in that hedge. And again, it's a very tall hedge. We're looking at 8 to 10 feet, but just some trimming on the inside to facilitate that installation. This is actually a meter box that we would call a level three, where you have the podocarpus literally right 6 inches from the meter box. There's really no way to get in there without actually pulling the landscaping out. So this would be, again, like I said, a level three, where we're going to actually have to remove these two podocarpus hedges to facilitate that installation.
How do you read these meters?
Very, very carefully.
By crawling on your stomach.
And Mr. Lyons, that's actually your brother's meter.
And you can talk to him a little bit about
You can talk to them. But more seriously, on something like that, why create headaches for the future? Why don't we move it out of the hedge? Are you gonna leave it in the hedge?
Well, because there's not much room from where it's at now in the roadway. There's very limited space.
So between that
Oh,
meter.
that's on the road, right?
See, between that meter and the edge of the pavement, you've got countless other utilities that are in between them.
So you need to leave it there before you talk.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can't be really putting that
Can you,
meter on.
so in the
top of it.
future, can you cope with that location in terms of what you have to do?
As far as any repairs,
Yeah.
technically, no, it's not a good spot to have all that shrubbery on top of that meter, because if the service ever was to break, even on his side, he would have a very, very difficult time to get someone to get there and repair it in a fashion manner. It's not easy. Because he's got a black olive that sits literally right behind that meter on the.
But you're gonna be destructive in some of the vegetation, why not address it for the future maintenance?
Where our
And
goals are,
it's just a question, I mean.
No, it's a good question.
our goals right now are to get the meters installed so we can start having service with the
Right.
new meters. And then individual bases go in and remove the meter if it's in actually the private property, or if it's in our easement, and if it's in line of where it blends both, if it falls in between private and, our common area for our utilities, to draw it out a little bit more so it'll be completely in our utilities area.
And I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, if there's an opportunity to move one that's already in the right of way to another point in the right of way that's not gonna be on top of 2 or 3 different utilities, then.
Well, you guys have
But
The only part what that would be is the cost that we're gonna endure from moving the customer side service to where we would have to move it to a different location, and we would have to pay the cost of doing that because the customers is not liable for it, because we're moving the meter box because we're requiring to move it.
So we're actually looking at, and we do have some meters that are on private property. And so obviously those, our goal would be to get those off, but I think the immediate goal is to replace them, and then, because we've already got cost estimates and all that, and then address moving them afterwards, because that would be by a different.
So in this case, you take out some landscaping, put it back in or whatever.
Well, my recommendation as us having the service is not to put nothing back on it. It's to leave it bare, so that way we don't have no problems.
Because see, it's in the right of way, and
It's in the right way.
we would.
I mean, this is what raises the question that we'll be facing with the road work, is that we have quite a bit of foliage in our right of way. And when those roads are expanded, or more particularly here where we're actually putting in new infrastructure, those hedges are going to be removed.
So they can, and that property, they can be moved back into the property without any.
Well, just keep in mind, he has a black olive that literally sits right behind that hedge.
Here's a what?
There's, Mr. Look at the next picture.
So they can move the tree.
Say
Well,
again?
I don't know, but don't quote me on this.
Just so you appreciate the scope of this.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
How many homes are level 3? What percentage of them?
Approximately 30%, which is over 100.
That includes place up.
Yeah,
And Palo Alto as well.
Town
Yeah.
Right.
I have 30
limited
just in
to
Palo
just
Alto
the
Lake.
four.
There's 30 alone in Palo Alto Lake. Just to give you an idea.
Right, and so what you're talking about is the homeowner either comes back and sees a gap tooth in their hedge, and then has to move the whole hedge back out of the right of way, or lives with it the way it is, because they're not going to be allowed to replant in the right of way.
Well, we went through this on expanding the roads, and I thought the communication between the town residents was excellent. And I believe that most residents were, at the end of the day, satisfied with the outcome. And I think it's another step in addressing our infrastructure, which is going to require a little give and take. I don't know how.
We have members of the board from the Civic Association here today. Thank you for coming, Georgette, man. Because I think this needs to be brought to the attention of the residents. The last thing I want is another summer activity that people come back and all of a sudden there's gaps in their head. Next month, we're going to be doing the CIP, and we'll be having Baxter Woodman present aerial photographs of the roads to be enlarged and modified in town, and what impact that might have on the rights of way. Because it's very instructive to see our actual right of way as it goes through private property. And I just want to make sure, I think we all want to make sure that all the residents are fully aware of what is going to transpire.
I echo that. I mean, you can't over-communicate.
Right.
You can't over-educate. And I think if that happens, generally people over time accept the reality.
So do we have a list of the addresses of these homes?
I have to put it together. I have
Okay.
some from Palo Alto Lake already.
Right.
I did a drive-by yesterday and I looked at all the other ones that just seemed like they were down because there were so many.
And are they all hedges, or is there other
Some are hedges,
types
some
of
are,
foliage?
they're actually trees. Some are shrubbery that's turning into trees. I mean,
Well, that would just be root system.
correct. Plus the tree itself is already encroaching into the area where it's actually gonna be worked at.
You mean it has grown?
What was the name of the MDU next to Villa Daisies again?
Westminster.
Yeah, that one there has what we call, it's the same type of plant that's out here next to our wall. It's called the evergreen ficus. And that actually has grown completely over the whole entire top of it. I've talked to them for almost 2 years since I've been here, since the first month I read, and asked them why is that covered? And they said, well, we've asked them to cut it back and they never have. I took it upon myself, I cut an actual tunnel out of it to get to it so I can read it, because I literally have to lay on my stomach to get in the hole just to read it, which is really ridiculous. But I've asked them to cut it back and they never cut it back. So I took it upon myself to cut a tunnel in it. But when I just met with him recently, about 2 weeks ago, I told him we're getting the meters. I told him we're gonna have to take a section of that hedge out of it and let it fill in to where it covers both sides, but we need access to the meter, because if not, if something was to ever happen, I don't have any accessibility to that meter whatsoever. And then when we come to do the repair, we're not gonna care how it's gonna look then, we're just gonna rip it out and get to it and fix it. Because we don't want water just spewing everywhere, undermining everything and destroying whatever it wants to destroy, just because it has vegetation on top of it.
And I've certainly already had a conversation with Rebecca Travis, with Baxter Woodman and Jockey, who designed our water main improvements out here. And for the meeting in July, I'd like to know from them if in fact, I mean, because the two streets that we're really talking about are west of Polo, and that'd be Middle Road and Banyan. And then your other one is Old School, because Lakeview doesn't go west of Polo. And Middle Road already has 18 feet of pavement, which is what Gulfstream Road now has. Gulfstream used to have 15 feet before we had it. Now Banyan isn't as wide as Middle Road, west of Polo. So the goal will be to try to have some answers about whether we would have to expand perhaps Banyan Street, to get the proper drainage and all that. So we know what the goal is for the information that we need to have by our July meeting.
Right. So, okay. Any questions? Well, we have before us a recommendation to award the contract for the installation of the water meters that we've already approved and ordered. Then the question is when we would begin such work. Seems to me we should approve the contract and then decide on moving forward with it. I'd like to hold off until this information is given to residents. They probably already know. I mean, you know where your water meter is. Tell by looking if it's covered with a hedge. But still, communications.
I think communication is key, really, but it's pretty much inevitable. I mean, even if with the present water meters, if they're hard to read something, it needs to be done regardless.
Right.
I like the idea of a little more holistic. We're going to be talking about expanding the road so we could sort of do it in one communication, like I suppose he keeps hitting.
And that we'll get that information in July.
Yeah, and to do the work that is part of the capital improvement plan with respect to the water mains and the improvements to the roadways, I'm not sure whether that will require widening the roads or not. My guess is on Middle Road it won't, and perhaps on Banyan up there it might be.
Yeah, it may not be quite as bad as we feared.
And if you remember when we were doing not the temporary, but the minor roadway and drainage improvements on Polo, and we found that it really didn't impact nearly as many homes and their bushes as we thought. But we also, I mean, communication is the key here, and we communicated a lot with that project, and so that really helped us, I think, while we were doing the work.
All right, great. Well then, if we're in agreement, let's get the contract awarded for installation of these meters. Forward after the July meeting on setting a date to actually do the install.
Do a motion on this?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to award a contract to National Metering Services Incorporated not to exceed $29,000 for the installation of electronic smart meters.
I'll second it.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Thank you. We need to designate all the voting delegates and alternates for the Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Yeah, I mean, we do this every year. I think, Rita, don't we hand them the same?
Yeah, for years, we've had the same.
Right, this is kind of pro forma.
Yeah.
Right, we just need you to endorse it.
Yeah, approve it. Right.
Yes. Another motion?
Yes, please.
You're good.
I make a motion to approve the voting delegates for delegates and alternates to the Palm Beach County League of Cities as listed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Anything else? Any comments from the commission? If not, thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned. Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't even have the RO, so it would have been longer.
I'm the RO.
how nice you are about making
Oh, a movie star.
training, but I thought I'd keep you out of trouble.
Try.
Okay. And congratulations.
We don't want you to get fined.